Hello and welcome to the SMEFocus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. I'm your host this week to highlight aspects of UK manufacturing and in particular SMEs. My guest today is Mark Pinder of FIG 3D, who are specialists in new product introduction, advanced manufacturing, 3D printing and much more. Hi Mark, welcome to SMEFocus.
Hi Mark, and hi to MTDCNC listeners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little insight into my thoughts and the business that we've got today.
Well, I think you've got an exciting topic to talk about, so there's adding the pressure. Let's see if in half an hour later the viewers think it was exciting.
I look forward to the review.
Dear, I've never asked for a review. That would be a dreadful thought, but yeah, let's hope. So obviously I've looked through LinkedIn and stuff, and I can see you've had an 18-year sort of work history working with a variety of companies, from the small SMEs that maybe a lot of this show targets, but also up to the large multinational companies, large multinational manufacturers, let's say. So can we kick off by telling us a little bit about your history, what you've done, who you've worked for, funny stories, what you've learned, whatever you fancy?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. So yeah, 18 years. Wow, man and boy, I guess. Did I see myself in this position today? Absolutely not. So to the younger listeners, don't be fearful of not knowing exactly where you want to go just yet. It all turns out okay in the end. Yeah, I started off actually wanting to be in the Royal Navy, but due to personal circumstances, that was sadly not able to be continued on. So I then fell into sales. My uncle ran a stocking company for specialist materials, and there is where I realized a passion for sort of joining technical problems with commercial solutions. That led me to a couple of years down the track, continued in the commercial roles, and really started to get my teeth into enjoying the trials and tribulations and the successes that comes with problem solving, but with a commercial facet. From that, I decided to cut my teeth a little bit more and studied H&D in business management and marketing, which really was, I would say, the stepping stone enabling me to use what I would consider street smart, savvy, sort of commercial approach with a bit more of a refinement. So I started I would say the big chapter where I stretched and learnt the most was at AMG Alperco. They're a manufacturer in the UK of aluminium powders. And that was, a fantastic opportunity, great company, medium-sized organisation. And I would say, annual budgets were in excess of $40 million. So it was a really real challenge to manage that in a very volatile market, because effectively aluminium powder is a very commoditized material. But that enabled me to really learn all the challenges of running a commercial organization, the growth, the challenges, the headwinds that are faced in manufacturing that continue to be a key issue, particularly for UK. And that's where I started to fall in love with additive manufacturing. Throughout the whole history, Mark, my philosophy has been very much about getting my hands dirty. I'm very hands-on. So every business opportunity I had, I'd be looking at the process. Some would say it's self-indulgent and you're a commercial guy, but I really liked to just understand from a process perspective what we could do to enable greater margins, not only just on the sales side. The additive manufacturing was fairly new to me, but was founded in AMG Alperco.
Okay, interesting. And was that because of the use of the aluminium powder by 3D printing machines and sintering machines, or where did this jump, where did this moment of revelation come from that, wow, additive manufacturing seems exciting?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a natural transition because many users were starting to look to metal powders for 3D printing. Traditionally, it was big, larger OEMs wanting to trial and realize how different aluminium alloy materials would play a part within various sectors in the industries, from aerospace, automotive. Naturally, it's a lightweight material. Under the right conditions, of course, it provides applications with fantastic properties that enable much more greener and sustainable energy output from its performance. So there was a lot of focus on building material knowledge and expertise in this process using various alloys. And that's where I started to talk to users who needed various kinds of those materials, and went through the development cycles with them, and therefore attended many shows, TCT TCT in Birmingham, and then of course we were at the AM conference in Frankfurt, which was every year. And the funny thing was, not so funny for the leadership, but at the sales of powder that went into the additive industry or application was maybe 1% of the annual turnover of the company. So my time spent versus yielding revenue benefit was sadly considered self-indulgent, and I recognized that. So at that point, it was only fair to the leadership that I said, hey, look, I really want to get into additive because of where I see the potential opportunity there in the new technology, with my passion for materials kind of nicely segued into the additive space where I began.
Okay, so jumping to today in Fig 3D, I gave a dreadfully short and therefore very basic introduction. So can you tell us a little bit more about what Fig 3D does with additive manufacturing, and obviously beyond that, because I think you do more? It'd be fair to say you're more than just an additive manufacturing provider. So tell us about Fig 3D.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mark. And it was a good effort initially. Kudos to that. So Fig 3D is a culmination of my experience with additive over the last 10 years. And I would say that one of the key things to make quite clear is our philosophy is agnostic. So there's been a lot of, shall we say, a lot of bias, a lot of narrative around pushing people's decisions to invest in certain materials and technologies, which have founded to be not the right one. And that's fine. I get that. That's development. But it's quite a high risk way of investing, essentially, with capital. So Fig 3D has been born to effectively remove some of those barriers that are resistant to new entrants in the marketplace. At the moment, 3D printing, or should I say additive manufacturing, is at quite a crucial pivot point, and it's getting there. But I think in the earlier days there was a lot of hype, which caused some misconceptions in the industry. Yeah. So without going through all those sort of challenges now, fundamentally Fig 3D to remove complexity, remove risk in the adoption. So Pivot Point Dynamics is one of the business units which is fundamentally front-end positioned for new product introduction, or indeed challenges that exist in supply chain through maybe its obsolescence. But we can use manufacturing technologies as well as additive manufacturing to address those problems. Then we can realize those through Shift 3D. So Shift 3D effectively is a platform that is a partnership of manufacturers that have been handpicked by myself, that have the broadest choice of technology materials that really enable us to settle or solve any application that's within the customer needs to address. It's often found in the past that having a biased view, right, which is fine, I get that. If you have a company with an abundance of machines, you're going to push a customer to a certain certain technology or material that's going to benefit the most to the company, whilst of course trying to deliver an application success. I found that in previous capacities where I felt conflict of interest, that actually in the spirit of additive manufacturing, which is my passion for adoption, by telling a customer to choose this because it suits us best didn't really sit well with me. That will also lead to that potential client not wanting to continue down the additive track because they've been given they've been shoehorned into a situation where it doesn't make any sense or it's not viable. So this way of being completely non-biased will remove those issues and hopefully address wider adoption in technology. But through just where we are as a business now, we're considered, I've handpicked a team that are specialists in each discipline within the additive and traditional manufacturing spectrum, so that anybody who wants to come to us with a challenge or a new product, we have the bandwidth, but without the cost to enable them to realize that. Then, if they so much as want to realize the manufacturing capability internally, our last piece of the jigsaw is AMS 3D, which essentially is a business unit that was actually founded by myself initially, and then it's grown. But that was through material machine acquisition, internal installations, so that the client had proven the business case without risk, then went on to invest with my support and the team support in installation training, making sure that that was a smooth transition. And we offer maintenance training packages to continue helping them strip cost out of quite an expensive process effectively. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea, Mark. Sorry to explain that full spectrum.
No, it seemed to make sense to me, so hopefully it does to others. How differentiated would you say Fig 3D? Sorry, how differentiated would you say Fig 3D is in this sort of being independent of technology and independent of brand, and being sort of able to offer not just the best brand, that best tech that fits the solution, but also flex later on as maybe the customer's requirements change? Does that make you very unusual, or is there does 10% of the market work like that, and then 90% of the market tied to certain manufacturers? How would you describe the traditional market?
Yeah, I mean, to sort of from a differentiation perspective, again, it's about that agnostic philosophy we have, and it's completely, it breeds inclusivity and diversity, which is part of our branding. So that we effectively, it's just even our core values reflect that application is the key focus for us. And then it's about choosing what makes sense for the customer and that application to drive down cost, right? So our fundamental drive is to utilize all technologies where it makes most sense. So coming back to the kind of the additive manufacturing point, it's actually just another tool in a toolbox. It's no different to some applications. Excuse me. Some applications, it may warrant CNC because of its basic geometries, so it's more cost effective. Therefore, that is what we would propose. The other factor that differentiates us is that headcount is an expensive commodity today, right? So some of these smaller businesses that struggle to have, the finances to support, sort of technical directors, finance directors, etc. We also have that offering as a fractional service in our business. So we recognize they can tap into us, help them address their concern or issue that's holding their business back, without the cost and complexity of bringing someone like that on. It also allows us to deploy more effectively. So, for example, their concern might be on the electrical side, or it might be on the mechanical side. We have the bandwidth so that the team can just deploy the discipline of knowledge when it suits the project. So again, you kind of liberating your business from the burdens of carrying so much talent to address your issues. So I say that's a big differentiator as well for us, and the fact that we have, I would say the most important thing that differentiates us as well is relationships, right? So when Fig 3D, saying this as a sales guy is quite ironic, but it's not about the numbers. We're not actually focused about our P&L and our revenue, and that's all I've lived by is the P&L. But now it's about relationships, and it's about supporting other businesses grow. By using this technology will enable them to address the headwinds. So I think that's the key differentiator for us. I hope that answers your question, Mark.
I think so. I think I was really trying to get a feel for, were you unusual in what you did or unique in what you did? But I think for the further sort of expansion you've explained of the breadth of offer, it sounded like you're probably unique rather than unusual. So that's
good. I would agree with that.
Talking additive manufacturing. Sorry, go on. Okay. Talking additive manufacturing, is there any particular advice that you'd offer maybe for SMEs either looking to use it, or perhaps more typically SMEs who maybe dabbled with it in the past and fell out of love with it, or found that it couldn't deliver the promises they were told it could? What advice would you give in 2025, I guess is what I'm saying, for SMEs?
Yeah, great question, Mark. And the advice that we as a business would give, because it's not just my voice that I'm I guess expressing today, it's Fig 3D's team. A special mention to Andrew Alshawn, who's our Chief Technical Officer, who's been 35 years in industry. So I plugged him here because that's quite important to do, because funnily enough, he told me it's 30 years of frustration for him because he believes in this technology, but the hype, the high cost investment, the unknown challenges, the unforeseen challenges that can be quite costly as a result. I would say that has really given, it's been quite prohibitive to adoption, right? So a lot of SMEs have simply said, wow, this is just too much outside our comfort zone to explore. Sorry, Mark. It's out of our comfort zone to explore. So my advice is that there is no need to worry anymore, as it were, as bold as that commitment is. But I would say that the reasons why should we be considering additive manufacturing as a technology for modern day production, that's because of the abundance of benefits that it does bring in certain applications where there's a couple of examples of whether supply chain obsolescence is a big factor, right? So a lot of SMEs actually just need to maintain operation. They're usually carrying antiquated equipment, machinery, and it's hard to invest, or maybe not need to invest in new capital, but the supplies, the spares, all those things can become a challenge as the equipment ages. So additive allows you to effectively manufacture your own spare parts, right, within the realms of reason and design. So I would say that utilization and machine support for manufacturing, 3D printing enables companies to be able to address any obsolescence. But it actually also allows the customer, or sorry, the user, the opportunity to redesign for more efficiency, to become less energy conducive, and then leaner inventories, a whole host of different benefits that allow companies to hopefully fundamentally drive costs down, become more liquid in their capital, so it's not tied up, more flexible in design. These things are really quite vital to sustain in a very challenging landscape that manufacturing presents us today. So the advice is don't be fearful of the technology now. We're here to prove that out, to have no risk, address complexity, to provide you with a solution that effectively you can then realize and benefit the business. So yeah, we have all the sort of technical expertise to support that journey without the risk of investment being misplaced.
Okay. I guess sometimes one of the challenges with new tech is for the end user, so not necessarily the end company, but say the manufacturer or something, to start to see the opportunities for them. Are there any particular good sources, or how would you encourage a manufacturing business, an SME, to catch up with some of the ideas, to look at what's about, to really start them thinking about how it might help them sort of weather the storm? So I mean, you gave some great examples, but is there somewhere somebody can, it's a good show, it's a good magazine, is your website good, where would they go to maybe plant some of these seeds to think, oh, with AM, with better design, we can extend the life of our machine, the flexibility, blah blah blah?
Yeah, so I think that a good question again, Mark. And are there good shows? It's quite interesting actually, because TCT in Birmingham, it's a great platform to meet experts in materials and technology within this sector and how that can help businesses. But it's quite interesting having those end users or manufacturers looking at this opportunity. It's a challenge because there's so much choice out there, and everyone who's selling a machine is controlling the narrative, which means that they're getting a skewed view of what makes sense for them. So I would say that where can SMEs go to realize this technology? This is where why our platform exists, for that exact reason, where we offer a free sort of visit scoping session where we can walk around the business, or talk about their challenges. And then what we try to do is support them with a business case that gives validation and confidence that that's a wise solution to offer. And then we can offer support in realizing that and trialing it, right? So that for me is how businesses can adopt this, is by literally coming to us and saying, hey, I've got these challenges, which I've just mentioned before, which it could be supply chain obsolescence, or part needs to be redesigned for better sort of sustainable performance purposes. Literally get in touch with us and we can have a conversation about it. We do some fact finding and support the business. It's as simple as that. But the good thing is we can also help them do the financial assessment, right? So the other challenge has always been that in additive, people look at it from a comparison to traditional manufacturing processes. It's quite, in the early days, it was either, oh, you don't need casting anymore, you can just 3D print, which was a bad approach from the industry, and they accept that was the wrong message to convey to the market, because they're a complementary, not a competitor in process. And I think that's, again, fundamentally where we are today now, is we enable customers not to look at the cost at the beginning of the process, but the benefit of the savings. So I'll give you a quick example. We worked with a company that is in Denmark and produces consumer products that are awesome, and there's not many of those that are around, so you can let the listeners guess who that could be. But what they did is they redesigned their molding tools so that they could reduce water consumption. That led to less cleaning of the water, more targeted cooling systems, which enabled manufacturing output to increase by 20%. So again, it's one of the things that we've got to be careful of is when we're having those conversations about gauging this technology, we have to then guide them respectfully through the journey of saying, but the bottom line is this could actually save you X. So it might be more expensive at the front end, but the back end benefit is huge. So yeah, I guess that's the advice again to sort of use when we're talking about this for early adopters.
Okay, so a bit of a change of subject, or a bit of a tangent, and it's the penultimate question rather than the final question, which is another change of tangent, but you know what that one will be. You mentioned the Fearless Engineers Initiative. So can you tell people what the Fearless Engineers Initiative is? How do they find out more, etc., etc.?
Yeah, this is a cool story. So it's a Fearless Imagineers is the title.
Sorry.
Fearless Imagineers is a pilot program that I'm delivering in support with Willow Tree Academy. I'm a trustee and director of that academy. So yeah, it's nice that I have an opportunity to have a platform to deliver this. So it's bizarre. It was all about. I literally signed as a trustee in December, as I was a parent governor, and I really didn't know what that entailed. Right, I was kind of like, I was doing it for a favour, to be frank. Right, they were asking me to sign up. I was like, yeah, not a problem. Yeah. And I'm thinking, how's this gonna sort of pave the way in my career? And what was quite ironic is in January, when me and the team got together and formulated Fig 3D, during this process, one of my wife's good friends, her son, because I'm now running my own business, essentially, I've got flexibility, so I become the coach driver, the bus driver. I was they were coming to take him to school, and he was inquiring about the sort of business planning that I've been doing, the pitch deck that I've done for some sort of some seed ask, and he had an epiphany, and he said, "Oh, we were doing equity share in our maths class," and I said, "Oh, that's fantastic," and that was where the light bulb moment went, because he went home later that day. And he told his mum about our conversation, about how the real world application came about by chance in our conversation. And he said, "You know what, Mum? I have got special needs. He's a SEND young man, very talented, very bright, but naturally, we're all different, right, in our own ways. And I share a lot of common ground with that, right, from my personal background." Things haven't always been easy, right? So I recognized this was an inspiring moment that I'd managed to sort of inspire him, which is the most humbling thing I've ever felt. It was scary. So I literally, from probably 5 a.m. in the morning, I think it was, until midnight, that day I realized that Fearless Imagineers was meant to be, and it was in keeping with what Fig 3D is. So the pilot scheme effectively is to inspire young minds, future entrepreneurs, future inventors, that there's no limit, it's limitless, right? Have that real fun aspect. So the workshop entails some very basic business case development, minimum viable product validation and appraisal. Then they write a business plan, and then they go to pitch. But then, of course, it gives them, it's quite geared to the curriculum by just applied education. And so far, the kids are absolutely loving it, and their inspirational ideas are coming left, right, and centre. But it's all about what they're passionate about, what ideas they think could solve current problems in the world today, and how can we go about addressing that via investment or via product development. So we're trying to bring the additive manufacturing element in that sort of piece to effectively connect the dots. So it's completely funded by Fig 3D. In other words, it's my time and some of the team's time going out to the young uns and showing them how cool technology and science, all the STEM stuff and business can be.
Okay, amazing. I mean, we often talk about the importance of making manufacturing visible and appear fun to kids, but I think it's also particularly important what you're doing, of maybe trying to reach slightly beyond the more obvious traditional kids that are plodding along the normal line, but reaching out to some of those others, and working with what they did. And I'm thinking back to an episode with Julian Morgan, KPM Marine, probably 8 or 9 episodes ago. And if you read his CV or what he achieved, you'd go, oh, very successful designer, word with some very prestigious, all very sort of cliched, typical. But his beginning wasn't, and his lucky break was sort of apprenticeship and stuff. But there's somebody who's given a lot design-wise and worked on the ventilator challenge and stuff, but only resting on one route in. So I think, initiatives like yours, if you're providing more routes in for kids, it only takes 1 or 2 special ones to contribute something. So it's a win for the industry as well as a win for the kids. So sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I hope so. I appreciate it. And this pilot scheme, personal ambition is to actually roll this out even further afield, right, just past even regional. I know that money is difficult right now as a topic, frankly, but this is a way of, I think for me, we talk about, and digress a little bit, but the manufacturing strategy, the misalignment within government right now, and kind of, I'm hoping that fearless Imagineers will really grab hold of our next generation of talent and prepare them, skill them up, ready for when I guess the other stuff finally comes out in the UK strategy. So I think that while they're getting their house in order, I guess I'm trying to hopefully help keep the guys engaged until that becomes clear.
Well, I'm a great believer in, accountants who happen to do a STEM activity when they're at school. Don't think it changes what they're like as an accountant, but it makes them a more educated, more aware accountant if they actually understand what engineering and manufacturing is, because they did STEM at school. So I can't see how things like this cannot work, because a lot of us sit around stand frustrated that people don't understand that things are manufactured.
So I honestly, Mark, I can't believe you mention it like that, because our finance director, he's exactly that. So he was, we met when I was at Chesterfield Special Cylinders. And this is quite strange, but when you really work with somebody and you just think, yeah, this is magic. We were both young, mid-20s, trying to carve a little piece for our world out, and we're at Chesterfield Cylinders. And I said, I'm going to work with you one day. We're going to work together and make something magical. And he laughed at me and said, you're just a typical sales guy, right? Trying to get something to sort of inspire me. So he's such a smart cookie. And we ended up looking at the manufacturing process of a pressure vessel for the Hawk aircraft. So they supply the oxygen backup bottles on the Martin Baker ejector seat. And the manufacturing process was by using effectively an acetylene torch at high temperature, and then molding the end into essentially a fused base. And the failure rates were like 80%. So me and the bean counter set together to sort of look at the cost of this manufacturing process, and we turned a business from, I would say it was a business unit trading at 200 grand a year. We ended up turning it into £1 million business unit based on the bean counter, knowing how manufacturing processes work, and with my ideas around commercial changes. It was great.
Okay.
Self-indulgent. Sorry, Mark.
No, it's good. A lot of people are watching this at the weekend, so it's got to be self-indulgent, doesn't it? We all work too hard, so we have to talk about the things that truly interest us. So no problem. I'm not sure if that's a very bad segue, but here we go. Let's consider it a segue into the final and traditional question. Tell me what you've got planned for the next 12 months or for 2025, and that can be from a business point of view, personal point of view, both. what are you hoping to achieve in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, I have got a fiscal target, right? But I'm not going to mention that today because that's not what it's about. He says the wife she's the personal finance director and definitely puts the pressure on. But I would say that the hope is for us this year is to really get a message out to the market that we're here to support industry and to support businesses with challenges, right? So if I can finish this 12 months out knowing that we've helped so many businesses with their problems or get new products to market, I think for me that's the amazing thing. Is everybody else is winning, we'll be winning, you know. And I know that sounds really cliche, and but that's bottom line, Mark, for me. Is the more customers we've helped, the more I can smile at night and say, yeah, we made a difference, because that's what we're trying to do at Fig 3D, is make a difference.
Okay, sounds good. So how do people go about finding you and contacting you? How do they get you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn under Mark Pinder, of course, part of Fig 3D. We have a business page on there as well that you guys can find. I'm sure, Mark, I can give you the link to share as well. And yeah, if you search fig3d.co.uk, we're on there. The team are there as well, so you can get to understand the talent we've got within the business to support. And yeah, you can reach out personally, or even pop into a local bar in Rotherham if you want. Sorry, Mark.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and particularly for talking about the applicability of advanced additive manufacturing and giving some good examples of really how it can help a business rather than printing yet more little cartoon tugboats. So it was an interesting session. I hope other people enjoyed it. So thanks for your time, Mark, and I'll do the usual sort of wrap up to people to say if they'd like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or particularly if you'd like to appear on a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth, Plus Automation. Cheers. Have fun.